Hey, I'm here with Rob Schultz today, and Rob Schultz is a financial advisor, and he caught my attention. I'm a client of his. He's also a financial advisor, and he caught my attention because he's really been putting out a lot of great information on getting help for business owners and people that are struggling during this pandemic. So I asked Rob to come on here and kind of give us some background as to what the government's doing, kind of break it down into plain words for us, and just talk about the kind of help that's out there, and share with us just a simpler version and what we're reading online or hearing in the news. So Rob, I appreciate you jumping on here today, and I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you kind of share with us a little information. So
Yeah, sure, John. Thanks for having me. It's just been so much information coming out every day, and just trying to get our arms around has been very difficult. I've been trying to talk to as many people as I can. They're in the process of, trying to get some help through the CARES Act and just really muddle through all this. So I can certainly share with you some stuff, and feel free just kind of ask me some questions, John, as we go, so we can make sure and focus this down to who we're talking to. But as you know, we had this big event that's caused, first of all, it caused the market to crash. Second of all, it's caused us to go into what we now know is a recession. So we're all being affected by this in a number of ways. And normally when the market, goes into a bear market, we go into recession, the government can do some things to kind of help us out. Those of us who've been through a couple of these know that, right? And the two main ways they do that is through fiscal policy and monetary policy. And we're not going to talk as much about monetary policy. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to mainly talk about the fiscal policy, which we all know as the CARES Act, which is the big piece of legislation that came out on March 25th. And that's what we're all trying to get through with all these new acronyms for different loans and so forth. So the CARES Act is, I think it's like $2.3 trillion, okay, that of fiscal response, of money that the government wants to get back out into the economy as soon as possible, so this thing doesn't sputter out, and so that we can kind of get through it. So $2.3 trillion is a lot of money. I have a hard time getting my arms around, trillions of dollars. But the size of this thing and the speed are absolutely unprecedented. I mean, if we go back to 2008, so Lehman collapsed in September of 2008. It took 5 months before we had any type of stimulus response from the government. That was the Recovery Act that came about 5 months later. And it was big, but it wasn't 2.3 million big. I think it was more around 780 billion. So this is much, much bigger, and came out within days of market capitulation. So really the government gets pretty high marks on, taking action and taking it big.
agreed. It seems like the market likes it too. What we've seen at least last week.
Wall Street was impressed, and it's hard to impress Wall Street, for sure. So what does this thing really kind of mean for us that are, down on the streets? Well, the first thing that you need to be aware of, and your clients probably need to be aware of, is the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It's the simplest of all the measures for businesses. It's you're eligible for it whether you're a business or even if you're a 1099 employee, okay, or self-employed. And there's a link, and John's going to share with you a link to our website, and there's a link in there that you can use to go to the application for the EIDL. And it's a disaster loan that comes with an interesting feature of basically a grant up front. And the grant originally was going to be $10,000. And all you had to do was sign up for this thing, go through the questionnaire. It takes about 10 minutes. And you'd get $10,000 dropped into your account within 3 days. Now that has not happened. What's happened in lieu of that is it's taking a little bit longer, and they redid the application, and now they're only granting $1,000 per employee. Okay, so if you have 3 employees, you don't get $10,000, you get $3,000. And an important information, maximum 10,000 in grant.
Okay.
Yeah. And so one thing that you need to be aware of that's brand new information is that probably if you were early on this and submitted an EIDL application, you need to resubmit one now, kind of under the new guidelines, because I had not heard of anybody actually getting this money until just about a day or so ago. And those that are getting it are the ones that most recently put in an application. Anybody that put an application in last week, I don't know of anybody that got it.
So they put application in like this week and already got the money that fast?
They got it quick. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that tells me that if you submitted, early on, you probably need to resubmit again for this one.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So if you do that, then you get the grant, but then you're also in line to get a disaster loan. And none of us know what that looks like yet. But it is an actual loan that you would have to pay back. Okay. And we don't know quite all the guidelines on that. So that's the first one. And the second loan package that everybody's talking about is the PPP, which stands for payroll something or other. I don't know. We just call it the PPP now, I guess. And this one is a little bit more complicated. You apply for it with your banker. And for the most part, if you don't have a banker, you're going to have a hard time finding somebody to do this with, because most of the bankers are really only doing it with their existing clients or customers. Okay.
Gotcha.
And everybody's having a different experience with this based upon who their bank is. Some of the larger banks have shut down this program and really aren't providing it hardly at all. Most of the smaller banks seem to be doing a better job at this. And what you do there is you submit an application. There's a sample application on my website you can look at and kind of go through. But you'll also have to submit some underwriting documents like your corporate tax return or personal tax return, your balance sheet, financials, all that kind of stuff. And then your banker is going to underwrite this loan, which is based on a formula. It's 2.5 times your pre-crisis payroll, okay? So you take your monthly payroll, you multiply it by 2.5, and that's the amount that you can submit for. Once you submit that amount and you get approved, then you can, after 8 weeks, okay, of tracking what your expenses are for payroll, also for your mortgage or your rent, or for your utilities, you can then go in and apply for forgiveness for that amount, for how much you expended over those 8 weeks on those expenses.
How long does it take till you can apply for forgiveness?
8 weeks.
Oh, so
Yeah.
after the 8 weeks you can apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just called Payroll Protection Plan, PPP.
Yeah. Payroll Protection Plan. That's it.
I think that's what it is.
And so this is what's been going on this one. Is there was massive confusion initially, and we got through that because the first applications couldn't happen until a week ago, Friday. Okay, so Friday was a circus, and then here in the last few days, I've heard of people actually getting approved and receiving their funds. So that money's getting out there a lot quicker than what I expected with some banks. So if you go through that process and you have a good banking relationship, you should expect this not to take very much time at all, and that money is going to be in your account and ready for you to use.
Gotcha. That's good information.
Yeah. So so continuing down the loan options and so forth, there's a brand new one that came out yesterday, and it's called the Main Street Lending Program. Hardly anybody knows about this yet, and it's not necessarily part of the Secure Act. It's a Federal Reserve Treasury kind of thing. There's no grant associated with the Main Street Lending Program, but it's a much bigger program. It basically allows pretty, up to I think $2.5 billion in revenue company, so pretty good sized company, can submit for a loan from between I think $1 million and $10 million. They can submit for this loan. The interest will be deferred for a year, and it'll have a very low interest rate on it. It'll be somewhere in the 2.5 to 4% interest rate range. So this is a really good feature as well. Maybe for larger companies, at a minimum, it's a great opportunity to maybe restructure some debt, because that's certainly going to be a lower rate than what most people have on their existing debt. And I think this is going to be a really big program as well.
We've been refinancing, home mortgages in the twos. It's not everybody, but some people are qualifying. And so it kind of feels like this is a business loan into the twos, almost like it's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a great opportunity, and people are going to start jumping on it for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's big. Is there any downside to all this? All these loans and all this stuff for our economy, for the individuals? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you're a highly regulated industry like mine is, I have to report to the SEC. There's been some concern about, how you define this forgiveness of the principal of payment and whether that's something that's reportable. So far, nobody thinks it is. This isn't the same as, asking a lender to do a workout with you.
Right.
This is a program provided by the government. So I don't think there are many negatives to it. There's a dovetail between the EIDL and the PPP. It's like you can't double dip on that. Mm-hmm. So if you get the EIDL and then you later get the PPP, they're going to deduct that initial amount that you got from the EIDL off of what they forgive, which that's no big deal, And so, no, I really don't think there's a disadvantage. Certainly there's been some talk about, well, how have I been affected? Have I been affected enough? Mm-hmm. And, my opinion on that is that we've all been affected. And if your revenue hasn't been affected yet, well, consider yourself very fortunate, but you don't know what the future holds either. Right. We're hoping we get through this fairly quickly, but we don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think the sound business approach is to take advantage of what's been granted to you and apply for these things. Another piece that maybe you didn't realize, John, or a lot of people don't realize, is that also in the CARES Act, they provided for a loan relief on existing SBA loans. Did you know about that? Yeah. So what's going on there is they basically, and it just was automatic. If you had an SBA loan in existence, you didn't make a payment in first part of April. So it's not a deferment. That's they are forgiving the principal and the interest on that loan month by month. I think up to 6 months right now.
Oh, that's interesting, because that kind of crosses over. We deal with the furloughing of individuals' mortgage payments all day. People ask a lot of questions, and that's a different scenario.
Yeah, deferment's
furlough
different.
Is not forgiveness, is what we keep saying. Like it's it's a different situation. So
It is. It is. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, that also brings up the suspension of student loans. So some, government-backed student loans have been suspended for 6 months as well.
yeah. Do you have to apply for that, I assume, or no? They just...
I don't know. I don't have as much information on that. I did talk to one person who had theirs suspended, and I don't think they had to do anything. But there is also some confusion there because there are certainly some student loans that are more private loans, and this does not apply to those. It only applies to the federal ones.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Always the best advice is to call your servicer and ask what the options are.
Absolutely.
So the best thing we can say. So that's great information, Rob. I appreciate you jumping on here. We're going to put a link below to your website where I know you're updating constantly kind of information that you're finding out. And you caught my attention because some videos and things you've been doing. So I really appreciate you doing that and just educating all of us right now.
Yeah, you bet, John. I hope everybody stays safe. And I feel real positive right now. I think some of this stuff we're doing right now is working. We're going to come out the other side of this.
That's good. Me too. I feel the same. So awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. You bet.